Carvajal and the intelligence chessboard. Postponed sentencing, strategic repercussions across Latin America. Welcome to the Geopolitics Update channel. Wednesday, November 26, 2025. Sources linked to intelligence circles emphasize that the Hugo Carvajal case is not limited to an isolated judicial process. The former Venezuelan intelligence chief, already convicted, had his sentencing postponed to February 23, 2026. The decision, taken by the U.S. judiciary, is interpreted as a calculated move, opening space for speculation about the scope of his plea bargain and the potential impacts in Latin America, with special focus on Brazil. According to analysts, the postponement does not appear to be mere coincidence. The sentencing, initially scheduled for November, was delayed to coincide with the post-carnival period in Brazil, a time when political and social attention usually intensifies. The hypothesis raised is that this timing was chosen to maximize media and political repercussions. Carvajal has already hinted at possessing evidence against different regional leaders. While Nicolas Maduro is often mentioned as a possible target, the prevailing view is that Brazil may be the main focus. This possibility heightens internal tensions and generates expectations about political developments in 2026. Analysts suggest that, if confirmed, the revelations could reshape Brazil's electoral and institutional landscape. The episode also exposes the role of intelligence agencies as invisible engines of power. Since Snowden, it has become clear that agencies like the NSA have the capacity to access strategic systems. Investigative readings suggest that such tools are activated according to political interests. With Donald Trump exercising power more effectively in his second term, perceptions grow that these resources are being employed to consolidate geopolitical changes. In Brazil, the debate over elections remains fraught with distrust. Critics question the credibility of electronic voting, while analysts point out that legal cases against right-wing candidates function as institutional barriers. Cases involving Eduardo Bolsonaro and Carla Zambelli are interpreted as attempts to limit political participation. Conspiratorial readings suggest that if the system were fully controlled, such measures would not be necessary. This reinforces the idea that the establishment struggles to maintain dominance and resorts to judicial instruments as a containment valve. Venezuela, in turn, serves as a laboratory. Maduro used elections to consolidate power but now faces growing international pressure. Reports indicate that U.S. forces in the Caribbean have increased surveillance, raising tension around the regime. Analysts assess that the Venezuelan government faces a growing risk of transition marked by instability. The Carvajal case, by providing evidence against regional leaders, could accelerate this process and expand its impact on neighboring countries. The postponement of Hugo Carvajal's sentencing is not just a legal detail, it represents a strategic move with potential for significant repercussions in Latin America. Expectations are that his revelations will target Brazilian leaders, intensifying political and institutional tensions. The episode reinforces the view that intelligence agencies operate as instruments of power and highlights that electoral processes, though cloaked in democratic appearance, are influenced by external factors. The scenario points to 2026 as a decisive year, when international revelations may redefine the political balance in Brazil and across the region. The former Venezuelan intelligence chief, Hugo Carvajal, was found guilty of drug trafficking and conspiracy charges in the United States. His sentencing, initially scheduled for November 2025, was postponed to February 23, 2026, by federal judge Alvin Hellerstein of the Southern District of New York. Investigative readings suggest that this postponement is not merely judicial, it follows a plea bargain agreement and opens space for deepening accusations, including his involvement with the so-called Los Soles cartel. The organization, recently designated as a terrorist group by the U.S. government, provides legal grounds for more aggressive operations and raises the hypothesis that the case is being used as a strategic piece in the regional chessboard. Analysts point out that Carvajal faces a decisive dilemma. If he fails to present consistent evidence, he could receive life imprisonment. Expectations are that his plea bargain will bring documents and testimonies capable of implicating political leaders across Latin America. Reports suggest that the CIA is already operating in Venezuela to identify individuals and materials that could corroborate the information provided. This movement reinforces the conspiratorial perception that intelligence agencies function as government tools, adapting to strategic interests and shaping narratives of legitimacy. Carvajal, extradited from Spain in 2022, is accused of coordinating drug shipments to the United States in alliance with Colombia's FARC and Venezuelan state structures. His role is considered key to understanding connections between armed groups and governments in the region. Investigative lines suggest that his revelations may implicate not only Nicolas Maduro but also other Latin American leaders. Colombian President Gustavo Petro, already facing internal political strain, appears as a potential target of additional pressure if documents or testimonies confirm links. In Brazil, the possibility that revelations may implicate figures connected to the current government generates apprehension. Carvajal's sentencing will occur just months before the start of the 2026 presidential campaign, increasing its potential impact. The timing raises the hypothesis of strategic planning, international revelations coinciding with a decisive moment in national politics. Investigative analysts highlight that, if evidence involves Brazilian leaders, the electoral scenario could be profoundly altered. Venezuela's situation remains critical. Maduro faces growing pressure, with U.S. forces positioned in the Caribbean expanding surveillance. The designation of the Los Soles cartel as a terrorist group strengthens legal justifications for more aggressive actions. Conspiratorial readings suggest that the Venezuelan regime faces a growing risk of transition, though the military structure, strongly aligned with the government, may offer resistance. Transition is considered possible but accompanied by risks of instability and violence. The episode also reignites debates about democracy and institutional appearance. Experts remind that political processes must maintain formal legitimacy, even when influenced by external factors. The hypothesis is that structural changes will occur within the electoral framework, preserving the appearance of popular choice. This dynamic reflects a strategy of aligning internal transformations with international pressures, amplifying impact on governments considered adversaries. The Hugo Carvajal case is treated as an investigative milestone in the redefinition of Latin American politics. His revelations may implicate regional leaders, including Brazil, and coincide with a decisive electoral period. The designation of the Los Soles cartel as a terrorist group strengthens the legal basis for international actions, while pressures on Maduro increase expectations of transition. The scenario points to 2026 as a year of profound changes, when revelations and strategic operations may redefine the political balance in Latin America. Sources linked to military circles indicate that Nicolas Maduro's regime maintains solid support from the Venezuelan armed forces. Despite rumors of internal fractures, the prevailing assessment is that the military remains aligned with the government, sustained by command structures and benefits tied to power. This machinery suggests that any attempt at a peaceful transition would face resistance, increasing the likelihood of tension. International concern is that, even under diplomatic pressure, the process could generate instability. Venezuela is seen as an example of how consolidated regimes use institutional control to perpetuate power. Reports of public resource manipulation reinforce the idea that the system was designed to withstand external pressures. Investigative analysts highlight that Maduro's permanence depends not only on military strength but also on networks of international allies. The hypothesis raised is that discrete operations may be underway to prevent abrupt collapse, although a tension-free transition is considered unlikely. In Brazil, signs of legal proceedings against right-wing candidates fuel perceptions of institutional fragility. This posture is interpreted as an attempt to limit political participation and preserve the current balance. Analysts emphasize that the Senate is viewed as a key piece in redefining the national scenario, increasing the relevance of the 2026 electoral disputes. The war in Ukraine adds another layer to the chessboard. Behind-the-scenes information suggests that Volodymyr Zelensky faces a deadline to accept a peace agreement with Moscow, under pressure from the United States. If he refuses, Kyiv could lose access to U.S. intelligence, essential for military operations. The hypothesis is that Zelensky will have to sign the agreement amid declining popular support and political fragility. Reports suggest that the president is already preparing the population for difficult decisions, signaling internal wear and dependence on external factors. The Hugo Carvajal case emerges as a catalyst. His plea bargain, scheduled for February 2026, is considered potentially explosive. Sources suggest that while it may implicate Maduro and Gustavo Petro, Brazil appears as the likely focal point of greatest impact. The proximity to the start of the presidential campaign raises the hypothesis that the timing was calculated to maximize repercussions. Three fronts intertwine under investigation: military support for Maduro as a barrier to peaceful transitions, pressures on Zelensky to accept a peace deal, and Carvajal's revelations as a strategic piece in the Latin American game. The scenario points to 2026 as a year when external and internal pressures converge, and the lingering question is, who controls the clock of these transitions? End of the report, folks. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and join the conversation in the comments. If you'd like to support us directly, consider making a donation using the link in the description or the QR code on screen. Your contribution helps us work better, and keeps this project alive and independent. Thank you so much. And see you in the next report. This content is a narrative adaptation based on public themes of global geopolitics. The version presented has been transformed with a unique style, based on public information, analysis, and opinions, and is intended solely to inform and entertain.